Hi everybody and welcome back. Alright, I'm in the game with it running because you don't have to run it, but I just want to explain what we're doing in this video. Now, we have our lifts and this video is about resetting our lifts. So the idea of this game is that if I run over here and I get the red colour, alright, so I am red, so nobody else in the game can be red while I have red. All right, and it would be the same if another player went over and got yellow. They would just have yellow. Now you'll notice if I jump onto a tile, then my colour gets set back, but our lift has not yet reset. And I can get my colour back, but ideally we want this to go back to being solid, and we want this to be available for another player. The other situation is if I run off this lift, and I decide without touching a tile that I just want to come over and I want to change colour, and that's fine, but we have the same situation where now both of these are translucent and they haven't reset, and at the moment any player can grab these colours. Alright, so that's the idea, that we want to reset the lifts so that only one player at a time can have one colour. So I'll stop the game running there and my long-winded explanation, and I'll get some of my windows back up here and we'll go about fixing that problem up. Alright, so we're talking about the availability of each lift. So it's either available or it's not, and we are going to make use of a special kind of feature in Roblox Studio called an attribute. So come over to the workspace and we'll open up our all lifts models, and we'll start with the first one here. So just expand it and come down to the slide part, because the slide part is the bit that we touch. And once you've selected it, scroll right down to the bottom of its properties and you'll find this add attributes button. So go ahead and click on that, and we're going to add an attribute in here, and we're going to call it available. So AVAILABLE. Alright, so make sure if you want to pick an easier word, that because it's quite easy to misspell available, or ready you could call it if you'd like. However, I'm using available, and the type that we want to make it is a Boolean. Alright, so it's either available or it's not available, and at the start of the game we want to make it available. Alright, so that's for the first model. Now we need to do it for each of the others. So come to the second one, down to slide, click on add attribute and available, and we'll change it to Boolean and save and make sure that it's true, and then we'll do the next one. Now it would have been better to do this with the original one, I'm sorry, but we'll just work through it and get it done. Alright, so available and true, and down to slide, and we'll change available and set it as a Boolean and set it to true. Alright, so just make sure that you have in your lift model, you've got the slide part with this in each one. So go through and click and double check that the spelling is all the same, and we are good to go. Alright, so now we'll make use of that variable in a couple of scripts. We're going to firstly write a function that will reset our lifts for us. So come down to our server script service and we'll open up our functions mod, and I'll just get rid of these windows, and we'll create a new function up the top here. So it will be function and then funmod.reset lift, and we're going to pass into this SC. Okay, now SC is going to stand for slide, there's a comment, slide color. Now there's two situations in here where we'll either pass in a slide color or we'll pass in the player color. Alright, where instead of having two functions to do the same thing, we're going to make use of this, and I'll explain it a little bit when we get to the situation. But for now, what we need to do is grab all the lifts, so create a variable all lifts, right, which will be workspace dot all lift models. Okay, and then we will get descendants. So we want to get all the parts in one big long list, not just the models. Once we have that, we will use a for loop. So for I equals 1, and for all the parts inside, and we'll cycle through those. As we go through the list, we're only interested in the 4 slide parts. So we'll say if all lifts I dot name is equal to slide, then we want to, well, we're working, this is a slide part. So we can go ahead and work with the code in here. Now, before we continue, it's a little bit confusing because we're using this in 2 different situations. So we're just going to make a couple of comments up here. So we're going to say used when the player runs to a different lift, and when the player touches a color that is not theirs. So those are the 2 situations, and we're going to change this parameter in here to reflect that a little bit better. It'll be a bit long, but we'll say slide or player color, and that should read a bit better in our code and make a bit more sense when we create the rest of the code in here. Alright, so now inside of here, now that we know that we're working with a slide part, we've gone through all of the parts in the lift models, and we know there's 4 slides. So they could be yellow, blue, green, or red, but we don't know what that is at the moment. So what we'll do is we'll create a variable here with local this slide color, all right, and it's going to be equal to funmod.checkColor, and it will return to us. So we're going to pass in the current slide, which is this here, all right. So we'll pass in all lifts I, and at the end it's brick color. So now we can create a conditional statement here. Now in this case, let's imagine one of the scenarios, and that is that the players touch the wrong tile. So if we create a if this slide color equals, all right, the slide or player color, then we know that we've got the right slide in order to reset. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now we only want to, because we're resetting the lifts, we only want to reset the lift if its attribute, all right, is false. So we can add to this conditional statement and we're going to say not, all right, all lifts I, and then we will put a colon and get attribute, and we're after available, and right at the end after that we'll type then. Okay, so I'll just move this over and make this a bit smaller so you can see the whole thing. Alright, it's a bit of a long sort of thing, but it's basically saying if this color is equal to the slide or player color and it's not available, then inside of here we can say reset this lift. And the way we do that is we'll say all lifts I. Okay, so we're looking, remember this is the current slide part that we're looking at. So we will now, instead of getting the attribute, we type set attribute, and we type the name, and then to set an attribute we type its name and then a comma and the value we want to set it to. So in this case we're going to set it back to true, and right below that at the same time, so for the slide part, we will set its transparency back to 0, which will make it a solid color. Okay, so that's the whole function that we're going to make use of, and now we'll go and look at putting that into the other scripts. So I'll just come up here, and the first place that we'll deal with is in our tile script. So open up the tile script, and we're going to scroll down to this area here where we had the testing. Alright, and I'll just bring that back up again so it's a bit bigger for everyone. Alright, where we had the testing. So I'd like you just to delete that testing section altogether, so it's gone. And just below where we reset the transparency, we're going to call the reset lift function. So funMod.resetLift, and we want to, in this case, pass in the player color.value. So it will run through and pass the player's old color in before we set it back to none here. Alright, and that will reset the lift. Now that's the only thing we need to do in this script. So the only other place that we need to do this is in our slide script. So if we open up our slide script, alright, in here we need to make just a couple of changes. So scroll down into the function here a little bit. Alright, and so we don't get confused, I'd like you to delete this conditional statement here, and we'll just work cleanly so that we don't we're not moving code around. Alright, so remember we're in the slide script now. So this is the situation where the player jumps on one, say jumps on the red elevator, gets red, but then they run off and change to blue without touching a tile. So there's a couple of situations to deal with here. But the first thing that we're going to do is create our local is available variable. All right, and we're going to get this from, now this is from a tagged part, so it's still the slide part, but we'll say TP and then get attribute, and in here we need to type available, and that will return to us whether the lift is available or not. Right, now if it is available, we'll do this part first. So if is available, then obviously we can change the player's color. So player color.value will equal the slide color. So remember up the top here it keeps changing, so we use this TP color up here that we created earlier. All right, and when we do that, we'll also want to change our available, except we want to change it to false now in here. So we'll say TP set attribute available, and just move outside, and we'll set that to false. And like we did earlier, TP.transparency will equal 0.6 to make it a little bit see-through. So that takes care of giving the color. Now just above this, all right, we're going to write another conditional statement here, and it's going to check a couple of things and reset the lift if it needs to. So firstly, if player color.value is not equal to, so that little squiggly line is shift and then the key to the left of the number 1 on your keyboard, and that means not equal to none, then. Now what we're checking here is, remember we start the game with none. So if the player has any other color in here, it means that they're running onto a lift with some color which we don't know what it is. So over here we need to do an extra check, and we say and the player color.value does not equal the TP color. So that means that if this is different to this, all right, and it's not equal to none, then we need to reset the player's old lift. So it's a little bit hard to explain, but say the player is red when they get to here and they're running onto a green lift, then what we're going to do is reset the red lift in here before we go down to these lines and give them the new green lift. Alright, so that's the idea of this section here. Alright, so and then all we need to do in here is to call the reset lift, and in this case we'll pass in the player color.value in order to reset the old lift. Alright, so there's a little bit of jumping in and out of scripts, etc. here, but I think we should be at the ready to give this a test. So we'll close down our scripts and we'll open up our output window here and give it a quick save, and let's play. Right, so there's two tests that we want to do. So the first one is just run onto any color, and you can see that we got it's yellow and it's transparent, so I've got yellow color. Now without touching a tile, run over and run onto red, for example. So now red is transparent and I'm red, and you'll notice that yellow has gone back to being solid. So let's try to get yellow again. Yes, we can get yellow. Now the last test to do is to touch you can touch either a color that's not yours, and you'll notice my color was reset back to none. Alright, whoops, I've just gone a bit glitchy there for a second. Alright, but can you see that yellow was reset? So they're all reset. So that's what you're looking for if you get a color and run up. And now up in the tiles up here, I just noticed that tile has not reset, and it should have. Alright, so we'll run over and get green, for example, and jump on this one. And now we'll run over and check this. So we can once again get yellow, but you'll notice our tiles are not resetting. So let's stop there. So with our tiles resetting, what's happening is in our tile script down the bottom, remember we removed that testing part, so we're only ever turning them off, but we're not turning them back on. So coming to our functions mod, and we want to scroll down to where we're changing our tiles. Right down, changing tiles. Alright, and inside of this loop here, what we'll do when it comes time to change, we will automatically set all of those tiles back so that they are visible and ready to go again. So we'll say all tiles, and we'll say can collide equals true, and all tiles transparency will equal 0. So they'll only disappear while the tiles aren't changing. So we'll give it a quick test just to make sure that that actually does happen, and we should be looking pretty good to have everything up and functioning quite well. Wasn't quite quick enough. Alright, jump onto and get yellow, and I'll just jump onto one. Oh, it changed to yellow right at the last minute. Alright, and it did disappear, but it has reappeared. And I think one of the final things should be to make sure that you are getting your points, as we are here. And then I jump onto this one, and it disappeared, and when they change, they will come back. Alright, now I know that was quite a lengthy lesson, but if you have it working the way as shown, then that's wonderful, and we are ready to move on into the next lesson. Alright, so I look forward to seeing you there.